Well, could you tell me about practice a little bit?
Last year we celebrated our 25th anniversary. We've
Wow.
been in practice for 25 years. We're about 25 people strong, and the number goes up and down depending on the workload.
On the economy.
Obviously the last 5 years following 2008 were fairly lean years for us. We're quite busy now.
Yeah.
We have some quite challenging and exciting projects that we're working on at the moment. There's a project in Brighton, which is right now 360.
360. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
I'm very
exciting.
looking forward.
Yeah.
So, Julia likes to talk about the boys and the toys. big,
Well, it's
big
just
machine.
this model goes up, and that's the toy really. The model of the
But we're
project
also
goes
working
up
on
and
other-
down.
we're
Do you want to
working
see
on-
it?
Yeah.
Jai? As well.
So the idea is to provide people with the same kind of experience as the London Eye, but it's designed for locations with a smaller market.
Yeah.
So I mean, the London Eye gets over 4 million visitors a year. There's very few cities in the world where you can generate that kind of footfall. So this has really been designed with roughly 1 million people a year in mind. And
Still
there's
a lot.
many more people, but of course it's a lot. But it will also work at as low as 500,000 a year in terms of its financial viability. And it has one pod which is roughly the size of our office,
Yeah.
18 metres in
Really?
diameter. And carry up to 200 people to this similar sort of height as the London Eye, a little bit higher. And it goes up on a very, very slender mast. And utilizes cable car technology. But it looks simple, but in fact it's quite sophisticated.
Looks like.
There's quite a lot of machinery and equipment required to make it work safely and comfortably. So that's under construction. That's been under construction for the last 6 months. It's another year and a half to complete.
And we're acting as the client and the architect.
Oh, right.
So we're doing the development as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
Similar to London Eye.
similar to London Eye because we were part of the client group. We started the company. So yeah, that's a bit unusual in terms of.
How do you
architects.
find out? I mean, being a development part as well.
Well, that's the hardest part, surprisingly. I mean, or maybe not so surprisingly, but raising the money for a project like this is very difficult.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And particularly after 2008, we had basically the funding in place just before Lehman's crashed in 2008, and then the banks all withdrew, and even venture capital eventually withdrew, and we had to find other ways of funding the project, which we did a year ago. So it's now under construction. And,
So it took 6 years.
well, there was a bit of a gap. But it's a leisure project, so it's quite difficult to raise the funding for those sorts of projects because you don't have the same kind of security or collateral as you would for a residential tower or something, where you can pre-sell or have other ways of, a bank can take it over. It has many other uses. This has had one single use.
Yeah. Then what's your strategy? I mean, how do you persuade people to?
Yeah.
You
Well,
develop
have
a
to
business plan.
You have to be.
Develop a very, very robust business
You
plan.
have to be quite persistent.
Yeah. And you have to,
And you have to believe it.
yeah.
But obviously, it's an approach that we enjoy people asking questions, whether it's about design or whether it's about funding or operations. If we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer. We want to answer people's questions about whatever it is that we're doing, to make sure that we really go into everything into a lot of detail. So our projects are characterized by being backed up by quite a lot of analysis, a lot of research and investigations before we come up with solutions or before we're ready to go forward. And we do that on all of our projects. So we're working at the moment on another project that's on site is a school in Cambridge for the university.
Yeah.
And that's also characterised by having a lot of research into the design of best type of classroom, best type of environment for teaching.
So we researched historical design in school, throughout mainly Europe actually,
Yes.
well, and the States, but then we also researched contemporary school design, globally, and so tried to learn the lessons and then develop the design from that. And it was very interesting because the client is obviously, a university, it's research-based as well. So we were working with a client who was very interested in that approach, and indeed it is their approach. And it's the first university training school at primary level in the country. So, the university is actually going to run the school. They're going to have it for their faculty of education, their teacher training, and research into education methods too. They're all going to be done in the school. So it's primarily a primary school. It's quite a big one. It's a 3 form-entry, so it's got 700 pupils more or less, and so with a nursery. But so it's more than just a primary school, and we've based the design on historical analysis of the university, the Cambridge courtyard model, but then we've kind of made it more up to date, I suppose, as well. So we can show you the designs,
Yeah, sure.
if you want.
Yeah.
I don't know, we actually haven't done a presentation as such, but we can show you the design.
Yeah, I'd love to see.
It's quite interesting. It's based on the courtyard, but it's also a courtyard that's open, not closed. And it really came from the head teacher that we're working with, who's quite a progressive thinker in terms of education. She wanted the school to be almost like school within a school. So because it's a big school, for little children, could be daunting. So the idea is to divide it into smaller parts, but also very much being part of a whole. So that's where the idea of the circle, because we've designed it around a circular courtyard. That's where that came from. So that you're part of something which also makes up a whole, and that's the kind of idea behind the.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah. Well, we were inspired by a school in Tokyo, partly. I mean, there's, by many other schools, but yeah. So.
I was quite surprised about the variety of the projects here, because I had some image like you're doing all landmark or
No, we
big projects.
We actually we like to do projects that are challenging to us, and that that are where we actually do have to think things out from not always first principles, but that all the projects are very diverse because all of the briefs are diverse, all of the site is diverse, so we very much take the design approaches from understanding the brief, understanding the site, the historical context, all of that, and then the design comes from that. Not having too many preconceptions, keeping open-minded as long as possible. Even when you've got a project that has to be done at speed, like Brenda's project.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
Yeah. I really liked it.
Yes, yeah. Well, it needed to be done very quickly, but also the design came specifically for that site, for that brief, for that. We would never have designed anything like that somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very, very bespoke. Very.
But I saw the water fountain over there. I mean, are you willing to enlarge your area into industrial design as well?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. Well, we've designed a furniture system. In fact, this reception desk is part of a furniture system that we've designed as well with the manufacturers. So we developed that. So yes, I mean, we don't do anything, but if it's interesting, then we're willing to, because it's the same approach. It's the same design approach, which is that's the commonality.
Right.
Some projects are small and some projects are big. We haven't heard yet, but we entered a competition in China last year for the World Horticultural Exposition. So we're waiting to hear whether we've been selected to the next stage or not, but that's a massive, huge project. So it goes from huge things to, I mean, that's got one building on it which is 600 meters long. And it's
Have you got the brochure?
you want to show a presentation?
We could show some pictures, I suppose. Yes, maybe we should get someone.
How did
This
you
is-
find
this
out
is-
working in Asian? I mean,
So this is north of, it's north of Beijing. Well, it's in Beijing, but it's north of Beijing. It's 80
Yeah.
kilometers north. So it's in a place called Yanqing, and it's an expo. So there's obviously a history of expos. The first one was the Great Exhibition in the UK, the Baxter's famous Crystal Palace, the Eiffel Tower, the Ferris wheel. Festival of Britain, Buckminster Fuller's Dome.
Yes.
I mean, there's such a history of. I mean, these are the landmark versions. There are many that have not become landmarks, and it's a question of what sort of legacy can be provided by these kind of expos, because they take there's a lot of investment. It's a huge site, 600 hectares or something. And it's massive.
It's interesting to talk about this. This is
Well, yeah, we're very keen on sort of basing our master plans on enduring principles of master planning. So, the cardinal direction is the learning from traditional, not just Chinese, but almost universal town planning principles. So there's a whole story here about transport, because there's a huge number of people that they're expecting, and that there's some improvements required to the railways, to the roads, etc. And also how you get around on the site. It's a very important site ecologically, so that all needs to be protected. And it needs a legacy. So you're going to have for 6 months it's going to receive. Whether it's 12 million or 30 million people, they're a little not sure about the numbers. And then it has to do something else afterwards, so there'll be a legacy afterwards as well. So we're looking at innovative transport systems within the site. There were 120 national gardens, 120 international gardens. I mean, it's a huge thing. But unlike most recent garden festivals, which were all higgledy-piggledy and very difficult to find your way around, we decided to use a very organized principle of planning, so that more like the Chelsea Flower Gardens, more smaller,
Yeah.
but it's very simple. A lot of people go and you can always find your way around very easily.
yes.
And you can plan routes, and it becomes easier. And it's quite a long, it's quite a huge site. And some villages are being kept and restored. The main town is over here. We kept people away from the river because we didn't want any possible pollution. We wanted to protect it also. And this is the main. We put all the pavilions under one big roof, which is a sort of an inflated ETFE roof.
Well, you're working with Arab.
oh, right.
So this is showing the legacy where the gardens are brought back. Some of it is developed into whether it's housing or offices or research or education facilities. Some of it goes back to agriculture. And then the building itself is a kit of parts, very simple construction, lightweight, flexible, reusable. A lot of analysis of how we treat the water, how we deal with power, how we deal with rainfall, collection because the gardens need a lot of water.
Yeah.
Photovoltaics, which can be incorporated, performance spaces, sort of the main meeting hall under the so you know we do, and this was we were working with O'Varman Partners on this one.
It's very innovative, but then I can feel the Chinese taste as well.
Yeah.
Well, we
It's
try.
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Always trying to make it of its place.
Right.
Yeah, we wanted to make it. We're not Chinese, obviously, and then we some fun things like this, which is a sort of a walk-up observation tower, not too high, but high enough to look over the trees and to see the gardens from above, because you get a very different view of it from down here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Bear in mind, the air quality is really not good there.
Well, out here,
It's
I
not
think
so
it's
bad out
not
here.
so bad. Yeah.
It's not in the city centre. And you still get the dust from the east.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, from the west.
West.
You get the dust
How
from
many miles is it from?
the Gobi Desert is thousands of miles away.
No,
but
no,
the
but
from
sandstorms
the-
come all the way to
Yeah.
Beijing.
But it's how many miles is it from Beijing?
It's 80 kilometres.
80 kilometres. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
45 minutes away.
Far enough.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the smog, but it still has the.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in Beijing for 1 year. I've never opened the window entire year.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
I had friends
Yeah,
living
David
there.
was.
And they had a 10-year-old daughter who'd been there for a year and they came back to Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Because every morning, is it a thick mask or a thin mask?
Yeah.
It's not good.
The default is a mask.
Yeah.
Default. It's a default you have to have.
Yeah.
Mask every day.
Yeah. So by their front door, they have the row of masks.
Thin mask,
Yes.
thick mask.
And you can smell something already.
Yeah.
It's really
It'll change. I'm sure it'll
Yeah.
change. And the last time I was there,
Which was
I
just
hadn't
last year. When
it was November.
November. Yeah. So she.
For this presentation. One day was absolutely beautiful, blue, clear skies. I'd never seen Beijing like that. It was absolutely gorgeous. Went out to the Olympic Park. It was fantastic. Clear blue skies. You could see all the mountains. There's really no pollution in the air at all.
Wow.
Amazing.
You're lucky.
Yeah. Everyone was so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
go from big things like that, and master plans we've done in the Middle East, to things like
Oh, the water fountain. Yeah.
Well, it's a bit of a long time ago, but can you tell me about London Eye a little bit? Because I want
the
to share
London
with
Eye.
some
Yes,
public.
the London Eye is still hugely successful.
Yes.
So it now gets over 4 million visitors a year, every year. So since it's opened, it's had over 50 million visitors. We designed it in response to a competition, an open competition, to come up with a landmark or monument to commemorate the millennium.
Yes.
We wanted something that people could participate in. But nevertheless, we didn't win the competition. Nobody won the competition. The judges didn't think any of the ideas were good enough.
Norman was one of the judges.
Oh, really?
Was it anonymous or did they know who designed which?
I don't think it was anonymous. It might have been anonymous. I can't remember if it was
can't remember.
anonymous or not. Probably anonymous. But they didn't think any of the ideas were good enough. So, but we thought we had an idea, so we carried on.
And we started a company,
Uh-huh.
Millennium Wheel Company, it was called.
And we prepared a planning application. London's local newspaper, the Evening Standard, picked it up. And they thought this was a bit of fun and started to run stories about it. Of course, it was controversial. So a lot of people came out and said, this is terrible. This. spoil the World Heritage Site, it'll spoil the river, it'll make London, a fairground. But then other people came up and said, no, this is a good thing. This is good for London. And then it, because of all this press, it came to the attention of Bob Ayling at British Airways. They decided to join us and become investors in the project. And with their backing, we were able to complete all the studies, get planning permission, and build it. And it was, we didn't really know at the beginning what a challenge it would be. But we had very, very, we had excellent engineers, and everybody working on the project was really taken up, enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, there was a real can-do
We found
culture on the project, and it was also the fact that it was the millennium. I mean, there was something kind of special about the timing, and
Yes.
it seems like the cosmos was kind of aligned to help make it happen somehow. It kind of was like a snowball effect.
Right.
we spent quite a lot of time looking for someone who could build the 32 pods capsules for the London Eye. We found this company in France, and they got really excited. And they build cable cars, one of the world's best companies for cable cars. But they do a lot of innovation as well. A lot of companies we saw in the UK in particular didn't have the facilities. They were very creative and good engineers, but they didn't have the factories, they didn't have the infrastructure to build it. And a lot of companies we saw in Europe only built one thing, didn't have the creativity and didn't have the innovation. And this company, Poma, had both, so they were the obvious choice. And it was similar with the Dutch company, Hollandia, who did the steelwork.
Yes.
We found a lot of companies here in the UK who were really good steel engineers, but they built static structures, and we had a machine, we had a turning structure, so you needed somebody who could do that. And Hollandia showed me some machines that they had built, huge machines, vast flood protection structures that float into
For the Rhine.
stop northern Germany from flooding.
Yeah.
And they also had workshops which were on the water, because we were on the river. We always thought, well, we don't want to clog up the roads by bringing lots and lots of material by road. We want to bring everything by river, or as much as possible by river. And UK steelworks are all inland, apart from shipyards, which are still, but none of the shipyards have all closed. So Hollandia's workshop being on the river meant that they could build the wheel in big pieces, put it on barges, bring it across the North Sea, up the Thames, under the bridges, to the site.
Oh, right.
So they were an obvious choice for what we wanted to do. And then there were lots of other things that, as we got into the detail of the project in terms of how the capsules stay stable, how we avoid the wheel vibrating in the wind, there were lots of problems that needed to be solved. And we were working with these fantastic engineers. Well, they're now called Jacobs, but they were previously called Allott and Lomax, and then it became Babty, and then it became Jacobs. But it's the same group of engineers who specialize in fairground rides. So they have a lot of experience of passenger safety and unusual structures, moving structures, mainly roller coasters and things like that, but it's quite interesting things.
Yes.
So it was a fantastic and very diverse mix of skills in the team, as well as the architects and that whole. There's an architect called Mark Sparrowhawk who came over from. Who worked for us when he was a student, and then went to America with Richard Ron Meyer and came back to us for the project. And a guy called Nick Bailey, who Julia
who
knew
used
at
to,
Foster's.
I met at Foster's.
Was,
Yeah.
very clever designer, worked on the capsules. So we had a very special team working on the London Eye, and it was a fantastic experience. Everybody still talks about it.
Yeah.
And but what happened afterwards is that virtually immediately people started saying, "Oh, can we have one?" And you name the city.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted another London Eye. And very few wheels have been built around the world because of the cost, of the fact that they have such huge capacity, it requires a lot of people. So there's not many places in the world where it's actually a viable business plan. And the ones that have been built have not been entirely successful. The one in Singapore is not commercially very successful. It's okay, hugely commercially successful. One in Melbourne was a disaster. The engineering was so poor, it had to be taken down and rebuilt. There's a lot of litigation around it. They've just built a new one in Las Vegas, which it operates really as a magnet to take people through a shopping mall. So it's a different kind of thing. And there's been one built in China. Actually, since in the middle of the bridge, which I don't understand.
It's weird. It's so weird.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
But we made various studies in a number of different cities. We went to Shanghai, for example, or New York, and we found good sites where it would work, but they were not available. In Shanghai, the mayor said, "No, we don't want to put it in. We want it somewhere else. It's not going to work." Same thing in New York. Put it in Battery Park, for sure it'll work, but can you get a site there? And so now they're proposing one on Staten Island, which is 8 miles away or something. It's just, so again, it's on top of a shopping centre. So the shopping centre will do well.
See.
But that's where the i360 idea came from, is because people were saying, we want this. And we said, well, actually, what they want is the experience. They don't necessarily want a big wheel.
Yes.
And this is another way of providing that experience. So we think this will, once people realize that we're building it in Brighton, and certainly once it opens, I think a lot of cities will come and say, yeah, okay, can we have one of those? And it'll be a lot easier than doing another wheel. That's not necessarily the reason we're doing it, but it's a sort of the result of these inquiries that we've had.
Actually, it's my personal idea, but Korea has a lot of mountains and it's untouched. I mean, it's not really nothing as a landmark. And then if we have some cable car and we can attract some people, I mean, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So then I was thinking about your project.
Yeah.
It's my personal thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on cable car projects as well, with Poma. So new designs of pods. And we've seen these ones in Hong Kong, for example, with glass floors. And, there's lots of things that can be done. There's new materials that you can use as well. But the range of work we do is varied. We work on all different materials, conventional, traditional materials, as well as new materials. So we're not specialised in any particular sector. We do have a particular expertise in leisure.
Yeah.
And so we're doing a project now in the Seychelles Islands for a visitor centre.
Yes.
Very, very low visitor numbers, as you can imagine. But it's a nice project and it's a fantastic location.
How about London projects? I mean,
London projects, well, we're just completing an office building on Baker Street, which is a conversion of an existing building. We're bringing it up to date, environmentally, socially, structurally.
what is that? I stay in Baker Street now.
Okay, well, you'll probably,
This is a bit of an old one, but it's It's quite a big project. It's I think it's 70,000 square feet or something. It's the old Marks and Spencer's headquarters building, designed by Luchin's son. So we're basically bringing it up to to be a modern office, in collaboration with some interior designers.
Do you have an interior design team in house?
No. We tend to work with other
As a
interior
collaboration.
designers in collaboration.
Yeah.
But our preference is actually to do the whole lot ourselves anyway. But if we need that expertise, we've got people that we can work with. Yeah. Yes, they're very good. The company that did this are very good.
Well, you've been running the office like 25
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the most difficult thing for you?
Probably the most difficult thing for us was in 2000, the end of 2008. 2009 was a difficult year
Everywhere.
Yeah.
because we had to make the office smaller. We had 40
It's
people.
always the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
Letting people go was difficult. I mean, we had been through recessions before, but
Nothing
everybody in the office
like
was
2000.
they were in denial. They didn't understand.
First we did 400 people in a day. 400.
Yeah.
That's quite
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, it's very tough.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
You have to be tough to do that. And
Yeah, we're probably not very good at it.
it took us a year.
Yeah, we should have done it in 2
Nobody-
weeks. We
nobody
should have done it in
left.
a day, but we didn't.
Nobody left without going to another job.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. It's like a family now.
Yeah. Well, we like
but
to.
that was an expensive, very expensive thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
That was probably the most difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I don't know if we how much more you want to see. I mean, this is the school. I mean.
you mentioned before.
Yeah. So
Cambridge.
this is the master plan of basically in northwest Cambridge, and that's the there's a housing for their PhD students and things like that, but also housing for families and. There's a kind of local square and a community centre, and this is our project. Is this school? I don't know. Yeah. So this is the. So this is the research. So we did a lot of historical research on different schools, throughout, internationally, and then this is, contemporary school design. We looked at, in Japan and Finland and Iceland, and then looking at the precedents of courtyards
Yes.
in the university, but also with the village colleges that were built in the 1920s and 30s. They were a clear precedent, as well as Arne Jacobsen and this is more. And we went to visit lots of schools with the head teacher, with the head teacher who we worked with. So that was very useful to get a deep understanding with her of what she wanted. And then this is, this is kind of showing a bit about how we work, I suppose. So we establish the core principles with the client. What are their core principles? Then we establish the design drivers. Also with the client and with the site and everything. And then we look at the the design, the adjacencies, all the different site areas, and it's actually the brief changed quite a bit. At the end of stage A, all of a sudden they announced that we had to do a separate nursery. Literally 1.5 weeks before we had to submit stage
no
A,
way.
B report, they said, "Oh, by the way, there's a nursery that has to go in." No one mentions that these days, but. So then this is the just showing a bit of the research about looking at designing the sort of ideal classroom.
Yes.
What are all the different things that go on in a classroom, all the different activities, and then looking at a traditional classroom, and then a more articulated classroom, influenced by Herzberger, and then when you put two classrooms together, and then you divide it into then making 6 classrooms. So this is a cluster that the head teacher thought that was a kind of number of children that as a community within a community, then children can relate to, and so then how do you then make the clusters come together, which is where the idea of the circle came. So we basically have 3 clusters. We have the communal facilities, the hall and the dining and all of that, and then the 3 clusters, and then the nursery, and all of those come to make up this central unifying courtyard space, which is not closed. It's open to the landscape, and in fact you can, as you come into the building, you'll be able to see right through to the landscape beyond. So it's making that connection with the landscape beyond as well. And then just the reassurance about using circular form, the King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, and so this was then an explanation of the design here, and various views, and the way it works in terms of circulation, security, access. I'm sure and then that's a kind of view of the whole thing. And it's on site at the moment.
Wow.
So yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. So there's some views on the inside. Yeah. So that's the courtyard. This is one of the articulated classrooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
So that should be, and it's been a bit like Brenda's project. It's been done at huge speed.
When it's the completion?
It's September next year.
September.
This year.
This year.
Oh, sorry, this year. Yes.
Oh,
of course. This year.
Wow.
I know. The speed is just We were the last, because they had competitions for lots of architects, and then they were meant to have the school, but then they delayed it by, I think a year or something. They were meant to, and then so we came on board. We won the project a year later than all the other architects, and we're going on site before anybody else. So it's been very fast, which is not necessarily a good thing, but if you have to do it, you have to do it.
And how did you start this project? I mean, it's quite...
Well, that's another
different.
Self-generated project. It was
No, it was a competition.
It was a competition.
Another competition that we didn't win.
Yeah, another competition we didn't win. Yeah. That's right.
But you don't worry about that.
No, we
you
don't
do
mind
it
that.
anyway. So.
Don't take any notice.
Yeah.
So at the moment we're talking to foundries, because this is a cast piece. So we want to, we're going to prototype it first, and then see. And hopefully we'll
Yeah, we actually have a potential first location for this in Lincoln's Inn Field, as part of the client on the LSE. Has LSE, the University, London School of Economics. He's quite keen on it. So, designed for disabled and dogs.
But the material is an interesting material. It's
copper. It's not copper. It's
what's it called? Aluminium bronze.
Aluminium bronze. Yeah.
It's aluminium bronze, which has a antimicrobial quality. So it's used a lot in it's used in naval industry for propellers, for example, because nothing grows on it. It has no. It's like copper, so it'll kill microbes.
Yeah.
Sort of antiseptic quality.
So it's quite good.
Yes.
In terms of you won't catch anything from other people because it destroys the microbes, and It's also designed so that there's one of the things that goes wrong with a lot of water fountains is that they get clogged up and the drainage and the blocks. So here the drainage is all on the outside and the water spills down over the outside and collects on a bowl where animals and pets can enjoy the water before it then goes out
That's clever.
into a drain. So there's nowhere that it can block up. And the pipework is all insulated so it doesn't freeze in winter. And
So this is really trying
and
to.
it's designed so that people in wheelchairs can use them because a lot of water fountain designs are not accessible.
That's right.
And it's the idea is that people go around with bottles of water all the time. It's kind of like this is trying to say if you had these around, then people wouldn't need to have bottles of water.
Exactly.
Yeah, so less pollution in these seas.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
The other things that we're working on, I mean, people do still come in and say, can you do another wheel? So we have ideas on how to do another wheel, but slightly smaller, less expensive, different ways of doing it. But we're not working on anything at the moment in terms of other wheels. We're doing a mosque in Cambridge. Mosque, yeah. Timber mosque.
Oh yes, there's the mosque.
Actually, this model here is part of it. Later this morning we have an interview for a little project for a pier and a little marketing suite for Hutchison Wankoa, which is a Hong Kong developer.
Yeah, we've got an interview today.
lots of projects.
It's quite busy at the moment. It's nice. It's a nice. There's a lot of energy in the office at the moment. It's nice to have a mixture of competitions and projects that are completing and projects that are just going on site. So there's a nice range of work.
Yeah.
For a long time, we were not building anything. We were just doing lots of project after building. Now we're building,
which is good.
It's time.
It's
to
time.
pick up.
Yeah, it's definitely time.
Do you see any changes in architecture industry?
Huge changes.
Huge
Yes,
changes.
huge changes. Yes, I mean architects' position has diminished hugely since we. I think, with the rise of project managers and it's changed an awful lot. And technology has changed. When we started, we had parallel motions.
Yes.
We had one computer, one very big computer. So things have changed an awful lot.
And how do you adapt yourself?
Well, I think that's the thing, is that you have to be able to adapt. I mean, it's in everything, in nature, in the world. You have to adapt. That's the key thing. With keeping your core values, but able to adapt to the changing circumstances.
Right.
So,
I'm quite young, but I'm also worried about the architect's role. As you mentioned, it's diminishing quite a lot, and I can see that as well. So.
Yeah. Well, that's why we quite like we kind of I wouldn't say we pick and choose because but we try to do our own projects as well. So you're determining your own future to a certain extent, which I think that architects do need to take more of a leadership role and actually determine what kind of projects they want to work on, as well as not just being at the beck and call of, as you say, property prices.